with all these screaming fans here in Chicago. You can see it. This is the reason why wrestling is where it's at. Wrestling. This man has held 6 different belts. The only team to win all 3 major belts. The Crockett Cup, this man's a legend in his sport.
How am I not going to like this guy, right? He knows everything.
Now, I want to ask you one question. Welcome to a special edition of Wrestling Resource Television. It's my pleasure. One half of the greatest tag team of all time, Animal. Thanks again for coming on.
No problem, no problem.
The last time we had you on was WrestleMania 13 on our show. Man, it's been a long time.
Time flies, man. Time flies.
And, we're down here, with everything that you've been doing since WrestleMania 13. Your son now plays for the St. Louis Rams, number 55. Yep. We were able to pay tribute to you guys, 20th anniversary tribute in Chicago, yep. Precious Paul Ellering. For the fans out there, how do you get started in wrestling?
Well, I was actually, like most kids, I played a lot of sports, played football and baseball, grew up in a baseball household. My dad, I grew up in Philadelphia. My dad played baseball for LaSalle College, had many pro offers. So I grew up in a baseball household. Got into football when I started lifting weights and gotten bigger in junior high, and loved football. Went to a junior college and became a junior college All-American guard and a linebacker. I played both ways. I had a full ride to Brigham Young, and then I had to give it up. I had the offer made to me, but I had to refuse it because I ended up getting my ex-wife, pregnant, to be honest with you, and I had a family to raise, and my son Joe was born, which was one of the greatest things that happened to me out of the 3 or 4, 3 of them being my son, the other one being my wife. And so I said, I had to do something here. I was working at Honeywell in a tool and materials crib. Good thing was Honeywell was a good company and everything else, benefits were great, but the bad thing was I hated being a 7 to 3:30 guy. I couldn't stand it, and I hated being behind a desk. It drove me nuts. So one night I'm bouncing at a bar called Gramabee's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and who's the bartender? None other than Ed Sharkey. And for those of you who don't know Eddie Sharkey out there, he had many championship matches against Harley Race, world champion at the time, and different things like that. More well known for shooting up Vern Gagne's office with a shotgun one time. Eddie had trained Jesse the Body Ventura, and that was his claim to fame on training people. So Eddie was a bartender at Gramabee's, and we were bouncers there. You had myself, Ravishing Rick Rude, Hawk, Nora the Barbarian, Smash Demolition, and a guy named Vladimir Pietrov, who everybody knows, who's with Ivan and Nikita. We all wrestled at the same time. Or not wrestled, we worked at the same time, bounced at the bar. So Eddie came to us and said, hey, guys, I'm thinking about throwing together a wrestling camp. And we all looked at each other and said, yeah, right, man, who cares? It's pro wrestling. Not that we were downing pro wrestling. This is at the time, we're thinking, how are we ever going to make it in pro wrestling? So, excuse me. So, we go and we say, okay, let's try the camp. We all went in it, and we loved it. We loved every minute of it. We used to goof around in my dad's pool sometimes, mom and dad's pool sometimes. We would have barbecues and cookouts and stuff, and we would do suplexes off the diving board and things like that. And so we ended up getting into wrestling. And Eddie thought we had talent and had what it took to make it in professional wrestling. So one day as I'm bouncing, he was good friends with Rock Rogowski, Ole Anderson. He calls Ole Anderson in. And he come up and take a look at these guys bouncing in my bar. You're not going to believe how big they are, and you're not going to believe how they move. And as always, we didn't know he was coming up. All of a sudden he's coming up, and I'm grabbing. I had some guy by the back of the shirt and the back of the pants, and I'm throwing him through the door. Bam! Ran in right into Ole's feet. I said, oh, sorry. And I had no idea who Ole Anderson was. Oh. And he took a look at me, and he said, I want to bring you down as a road warrior. And I said, well, okay, let's give it a try. And that's pretty much how the start came.
Wow. So Ole Anderson came up with the Road Warrior idea?
Ole came up with the Road Warrior idea. It was right after the Road Warrior movies was out and stuff like that. And, most of the guys in the Road Warrior movie weren't big as we were. But he was looking at two guys that have that kind of attitude, that nuts kind of attitude, like the heel in the Road Warrior movie, the guy that had the red mohawk. And with the leathers and chains and different, half the shoulder pads on and everything else. He was looking for that kind of look. At first it was infantile stage, we sat down with he and a guy named Bill Watts, and we talked about, hey, how do we want to make this progression grow? How do we want to change it? And so that's when they came up with the face paint, and Hawk and I were sitting there, and Hawk, one of his brilliant ideas, he says, hey, how about Animal has a mohawk and I'll have a double mohawks? It looks like we can plug our heads into each other. Bam, man. I said, oh, you got to be kidding me, man. I have a family. I don't want to go to parent-teacher meetings with a mohawk. But we did it. It worked, and, I love it now. So.
Who came up with the name Hawk and Animal?
Actually, pretty much Ole. Ole says, well, you're definitely an animal. He looks at me because I was just beastly big at the time, and he says, we got to figure out a name for your partner there. And Hawk came up with it. Hey, well, I like to fly around like crazy. He goes, I like being a hawk or a predator. He goes, you're Hawk. That was it. That's how it came about.
And then you started your career, and then how do you get put together with Precious Paul Ellering?
Well, we came in there in the beginning, and we got put with Ellering immediately because Ellering was a very gifted mind in the wrestling business. He knew how to teach us what we needed to know in wrestling, and he was our voice. He did all the interviews for about the first 2 months that we were in WCW, or actually Georgia Championship Wrestling at the time. And if it wasn't for Paul Ellering teaching us on a napkin how to, do a high spot here or a high spot there, or do a move here or move there, man, we would have never known. He actually wrote it down on paper so we could see it and look at it and do it. And we would practice it by ourselves, actually in a hotel room. That's where we learned how to throw punches and kicks, was against hotel room doors.
Wow. And before going further into the Road Warriors, do you remember your very first wrestling match and when it was?
Oh, yeah. My very first wrestling match was in Georgia Championship Wrestling. I was a Road Warrior by myself, just called the Road Warrior. Came down in jean shorts, jean vest, black leather biker gloves, biker hat, sunglasses. I wrestled Randy Barber, God rest his soul. Randy Barber, he took a butt kicking from us many times. And I beat the crap out of that poor kid. I was so hyped up and nervous. I remember grabbing him through the throat throw him in a corner for a choke, and his feet literally came off the ground. And that was my first experience on television, and I actually gave the crowd the finger because they were booing me, and I got yelled at from Ole for that. So it was a little too off the wall, but it was an education, it was a learning process, and shortly after that, I got sent to Charlotte because there was a big buying war between Jim Barnett and Ole Anderson and TBS and everything else. So
I remember your first tag team championship goal. What did that feel like?
Oh, man, I tell you, it was incredible. you know, whenever you win the titles, it's one of the best things in the world, best feeling. Even though it's an entertainment business, it's still, it's the trust that the company is putting in you to help draw money for everybody and everybody's family. And so you really take it serious. And I've always said you're only as good as you are as the guys you're in the ring with, you know. And that's true on every level.
When did you know that, you wrestled so many teams, and when you knew it just started clicking, like you guys knew, like you got it down?
You know, I think right before we came to we went to the AWA, about a year after we were with Georgia Championship Wrestling, about 8 months in, we started to learn ring psychology, and we started to know, and this is by the help of guys like Brody and Hansen and Tommy Rich and Bob Roop and and Ole himself and Paul Ellering on timing of when's the right thing when's the right time to turn up the heat and really start killing somebody, and when's the right time to let the babyface have his comeback, which everybody fans that watch know. And we learned that, but we learned to do it as street fighters and big guys, and it's probably one of the things that's probably missing today in the wrestling business, because big guys try to act like 160-pound guys, and it just doesn't work.
With your career, you were the team that came out, just as Paul Ellering says, the car crash. You guys came out as the entertainment out there, 5 minutes, boom. But you and Hawk were really dedicated to the gym. I mean, you guys, they did articles in the wrestling magazines about your athleticism in the weight room. I mean, what's the most you've benched, and also how many hours did it really take for you to just pick it up?
Well, my bench press, my heaviest was a 630 bench press, and then as you can see in some videos, I'm doing bent over rows for your back. I'm doing them on 405, and most people can't even squat 405, and I'm just pulling it up with my arms basically. And I was over an 800-pound squatter, and I was over 730 deadlift guy. And that was my thing. I like lifting heavy weights. That's why it was easy for me at the time. I was press slamming Terry Gordy, who was 325, and I press slammed Hulk Hogan, who was about 330, and Killer Khan was 320. Most of the big guys, they wanted to come at me, and I would kick them in the gut, press them up. Jumbo Ceruto was 6'7". I pressed Jumbo, so I like doing it and feet strength, and that was my forte. I even did 980 pounds on shrugs when I was doing an interview with Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So and it was really kind of a funny situation. It's pretty funny. I look back at old videos now. Curls. I won a curl contest when I was 18. I did 315 curl, and it's just things that everybody's got gimmicks within themselves that they're good at. I was just good at lifting weights.
And when you were in the gym, how many hours would you be spending in the gym?
It's not about the quantity of time. It's about the quality of time. And I wasn't a cheater, or never benched weights off when I was benching. Never cheated myself when I was doing squats, because you cheat, you end up getting hurt, and you don't really develop the muscle. And as you can see by some of the videos you look back on and some of the pictures, Hawk and I were way ahead of our time physically. That's why the fans love us today still, because it's brand new to them with the new 24/7 shows and a lot of stuff that's on YouTube. Kids today can go on and Google the Road Warriors, and I don't know how many pages or hits pop up, but it's in the tens of thousands. And there's so much stuff that it's like brand new, and they look and they're saying, how are these big SOBs doing what they're doing? Because not very many guys at the business at that time could run and do things that we were doing.
And did Paul Ellering help with a lot of the weightlifting techniques, or is it a little bit different?
Well, it's a little bit different, and Paul was already done his heavy lifting by that time, but you got to remember, Paul was deadlifting 750 pounds at 242 back in 1975. That's how ahead of the curve Paul was at the time lifting. He was a junior national powerlifting champion. Paul had a great feud at one time with Jesse the Body Ventura in the AWA, and that was the whole thing. Paul's interview was, the back is back, because Paul had just a big wide back on him, little waist, and he was strong. Paul's got great tendon strength,
I think I've done many of his workouts, and I think there's nobody, no offense, anywhere could keep up with him.
Oh, no, I'm telling you. It's funny, I look back on it now. Now I'm doing that type of workout, like a P90X type workout with muscle confusion. Now I look back, well, they should give a percentage of everybody who's to Ellering, because Ellering's been doing that for 30 years. And we just figured it out now, and he looks the same as he did when he managed us. So, it's...
And you went to AWA, NWA, won the Crockett Cup, 6 different championships, 6-man belts. When you look at back, is there any certain belt that, means a lot to you, or are they all kind of in the same category?
Oh man, let's see if I can count off the belts. Georgia champion or NWA, Georgia championship belts, AWA titles, international belts from All Japan, New Japan world champions, came back, and then we were the NWA World Tag Team Champions. I think we were the only team to hold the international AWA and NWA at one time together collectively. We just didn't carry all 3 belts around. It was too much stuff with all the stuff we had, with too much crap to carry around. Then we went on and we became the WJ World Japan Tag Team Champions. We became, there was another company, we became tag champions in Japan too, I can't remember it. And then we became WWF Tag Team Champions. And then after that, then we became myself when I was at Heidenreich, I became WWE Tag Team Champions. And then when I tagged up with one of the Hawks' former partners in Japan, Kensuke Sasaki, I won the Mexico City Tag Team Champions about 3 years ago. So I don't know how many it is. I lost count already. But, I mean, it's got to be 10, 12, 13 different titles that we won. So I don't think they'll ever be duplicated again, because unless the wrestling business goes back into small territories and goes into mom-and-pop type shops, those titles won't be available anymore.
And when you look at the difference, what was the difference for you between U.S. wrestling and Japan wrestling? Because you guys were beloved in Japan. It's almost like you bigger than life icons. You're like the Beatles going over to Japan. What made it so special?
Well, I think they followed us for a year before we went over to Japan and did filming and video of us eating raw chicken, drinking straight Tabasco out of the bottle and everything else, and guzzling the Japanese beer ain't that tough, and guzzling big 20-ounce bottles of beer, and I think that what made us liked over there so much is that we never changed our style from the U.S. when we got to Japan. And Japan was snug, and those guys liked to lay everything in, so that was right up our alley. I mean, we liked that. And I was always like that in the U.S. I used to tell guys, man, I'm not going to go down off my feet if you don't hit me. So hit me. And Japan was so appreciative of it, and we get there, they roll out the red carpet, they come and pick you up. I remember when we got there, we were there with a guy named Wally Yamaguchi. Wally Yamaguchi told us we had no sooner, our very first flight, 13 hours, we don't know what's going on, we're jet lagged. Of course, we had a few cocktails the whole way celebrating our toast of going to Japan. We get there and they make us chug 2 big 20-ounce bottles of beer immediately, the first thing they do. Because we said, Japanese beer ain't strong and American beer is better. Well, Japanese beer is twice as much alcohol in it as American beer. We didn't know that, And we're sitting there, and Wally Yamaguchi said there was probably over 200 different media outlets there filming and writing articles. It was a bigger crowd than when Michael Jackson went over to Japan. So we knew at that time, hey, we got something, man. We got something here. The Japanese people, and we had our first match. I think it was against Animal Hamaguchi and Killer Khan, and then we went for the titles, 2 out of 3 falls against Jumbo and Tenryu. The next night there for main event, it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, and it was they won one, we won one, and then we got DQ'd the third one.
Wow. Is it sometimes hard to communicate with the Japanese wrestlers?
Well, usually there's a referee or somebody that speaks English. Sometimes there's not, because there's always, they may speak English, but they may not get quite the idea that you want to get across. And I never had problems with any guys, but I know Hawk had a few problems with Jumbo Tsuruta. They're probably fighting each other up in heaven right now, man. Both of them both passed away, but Jumbo would do the spots and be perfect. Hawk would come in and Jumbo would screw up the spots, and after about a week of that, Hawk came back from the ring running. He goes, I'm killing that SOB, and he kicked open the door, glass went flying, and he threatened to kill Jumbo if he screwed up again. That was funny.
You had a fabulous career. Greatest tag team of all time. When you stand back and you see everything you've accomplished, greatest tag team of all time, all these accolades, and known as the best, what do you see?
I see we listen to our peers. And like any rookie, like what my son's going through in the NFL, I told him, get in the locker room, shut your mouth, learn the ropes, get the respect of your guys, your veterans, and then everything will go smooth for you. If you do those things right, it should go okay. And it did. And now his team trusts him, they respect him, they follow him. He's the leader of the defense. Same thing with wrestling. We went in there, we shut our mouth. Even if we were hard on somebody, we always apologized. We listened to Stan Hansen's and the Brodies and the Riches and Ole Anderson and the Flairs and Arn Andersons and, the Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, we listened to them all, Harley Race, learning along the way and learning how to do our business. And I think that's what helped us out more than anything else. We didn't come out there we didn't go through a high buck camp like some of the guys are doing now in the WWE, and all of a sudden you sit there for 6 months or a year, then all of a sudden when they decide they want to use you, they use you. And you expect a big contract right off the bat, and you haven't proved yourself. We learned it. I mean, heck, when I was in the NWA by myself, I was living off a bag of pretzel sticks and a half a gallon of milk for a week. It was my food. I couldn't afford gas. I couldn't afford food. I couldn't afford even a Burger King burger at the time, which was probably about $1.50. And that's, it's part of the dues you pay.
And you see out there nowadays, there's not a lot of great tag teams left. I mean, pretty much tag teams, they throw two guys together. There's no chemistry there. And what made Hawk so special to you as far as a tag team partner? What made him click? Because when you look at the great tag teams, the Midnights, the Four Horsemen, Rock and Roll Express, there's chemistry there. What made him stand out to really work with you?
Well, actually, in the wrestling business today, what they should do is they should eliminate the name tag team altogether. Come up with some different goofy name for, like a co-something match, because two guys you throw together, they're trying to insult the intelligence of the people thinking it's going to be a great tag team match. No such thing. I remember I watched trying to put Cena and Batista together, and man, it just is not going to work. You just can't throw two guys that are single guys together and expect a great tag team. Tag team wrestling has phenomenal chemistry. I could look at Hawk at a certain point in the match because I knew what he was doing, he knew what I was doing, I knew what he was thinking. He'd look at me in a certain spot and give me a wink or something. I knew what he wanted me to do. If he was tagging me, throwing a guy off and dropping down, I knew I was going to come in and do something. It's second nature. It's like when you're a kid, when you finally learn the game of baseball, and the whole thing when your coach of baseball is 2 or 3 plays ahead. Yeah. Think 2 or 3 plays ahead. If the kid on first base and the ball's hit to you and 1 out, where are you going? Well, you're going to second and the first, try to get a double play. Same in wrestling. If Hawk's doing something or I was doing something, we're thinking, okay, after this guy takes a bump and Hawk tags him in, what am I going to do? What am I doing next?
Well, we had the pleasure of having you guys in Chicago for Pro Championships Wrestling for Dream Night 2, your 20-year anniversary. You, Ellering, all three of you guys together, you guys won the PCW tag team titles. For you, looking back, paying homage to you, did anything go through your mind in the middle of the ring that night just because you look back and go, God, we were together for 20 years?
It doesn't even seem real that we have gone 20 years. It doesn't even seem, it's funny when I do the Legends show, as most guys in our business don't get a break or make any money or do anything until they're in their late 30s or 40s. I'm still in my 40s and I'm considered a legend, which is just blows my mind, but I'll take it. It doesn't matter because it's an honor anyway. But I tell you, when you do an event like a Dream Night like you guys had, it's a special event for us to get honored and everything else, and for the fans of Chicago to come out and see us, man. We always love the city of Chicago, where the Warriors hail from. And, it's a surreal situation, man. You think, wow, 20 years, that went by in a flash, and you said, where did time go? Where did time go? The only thing that we were respectful of is that, we took this business serious, and we didn't take anything for granted because nothing was just given to you. You had to take it, so.
When you talk to a lot of the great wrestlers, they always have certain teams they look at or emulate or things like that. What teams did you tag against that you respected?
Well, we didn't try to copy anybody or emulate anybody because there was really nobody to copy with our gimmick. The closest guy to being a total roughhouse would have been Brody, if we were going to try to follow anybody's lead on the way to go. Some of the teams we wrestled and respected, by far, The Four Horsemen. You know, Tully Blanchard, Art Anderson, phenomenal. Midnight Express, Bob Eaton, Dennis Condrey, phenomenal guys, man. Had a lot of patience with us, let us around by the nose. See, that's a part of the business that people need to understand, and the business needs to get back to, man. That heel, he knows how to be a bad guy, and he knows what you need to do as a good guy to kick you the bad guy's butt, and that needs to get back to that. Guys are so worried about getting their things in, and we were never about getting our things in. We trusted in the guys. We're in a ring with a guy like Flair or somebody. They're going to get our stuff in. We know it's going to happen. So, I mean, that's just 3 teams. I love working with the Steiners, even though we only worked with them a few times. We had a 6-man in Japan. It was Hawk and I, Kensuke Sasaki against Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner, and Scott Norton. It was a war. It was great. And it sounded like somebody was taking a side of beef and throwing it against the wall. Man, it was great.
Right now you're on tour with all the legends right now. You have a book coming out. Tell us about that and what to look forward to with the book coming out.
Well, the book is good. It's great. It's called The Road Warriors: Danger, Death, and the Rush of Wrestling. It's a good story about our wrestling career, how we started, some of the matches, quotes from some of the guys that are going to be in there. There's going to be a lot of good pictures in there, you know, it provided in the book. It's not going to be a tell-all, kiss-all that, you know, this guy did this drug, that guy did that drug. And that's not what the fans, I don't think, really want to hear. I think the fans are sick of hearing that kind of tattletale and stuff. I think they want to hear good wrestling stories. They want to hear a story of Hawk in Japan after about 4 big chugs of sake, you know, doing Walter Cronkite talking to Eddie Murphy by himself. I mean, you know, they want to hear stuff like that. They want to see it, hear stuff like, what was it like in Japan? What was it like in Milan, Italy? What was it like in Helsinki, Finland? What was it like in Glasgow, Scotland? What was it like in London, England? They want to hear different things of how it was around the world. What was it like, I get asked all the time, wrestling against Jumbo and Tendu? What was it like against Yatsu, who was a 2-time Pan American champion in 2 different Olympics for Japan, you know? We wrestled some real good quality guys. And that's what the people want to hear. They want to hear the fun stories, you know. With the language barrier, how did you ask to go to Gold's Gym and work out? You know, I'm talking to a cab driver who speaks absolutely no English. But we did it, and we figured it out, and, you know, it's going to be a good book.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time. You're a very busy person. We appreciate you coming on the show, and on behalf of myself and all the fans of Chicago, it's been an honor and pleasure to work with you, to walk down the aisle with you, part of the Legends, and, you know, look forward for the book coming out next year, and we'll love to get you back on and promote it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Paul. Don't count me out of the ring yet. I'm still the youngest legend of all time. So
No, I'm not going to count you out of the ring.
I never know what road animal may pop up.
Well, all I know is that we just got to get you some suitable tag partners to wrestle with.
That's it. I got to find quality people to tag with me.
So your body's still in good shape to go step in the ring?
I feel great. I've done some matches in the past, and I feel good. I took about 4 years off and kind of got rejuvenated and working hard, working my butt off again. And I said, hey, man, we'll see what happens. I've been getting a lot of offers. I just haven't felt like taking any yet.
Well, all the best to you.